Daniel purposed in his mind that he would not defile himself of the king's portion of the meat, nor at the wine he drank. Therefore he requested the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. That means he was not going to take one bite, no matter even if it meant death. That is where God's trying to take his people to right now, that we learn just upon his word and food second. His word first, his food second, our food second. We see that this is a book about Nebuchadnezzar in the first 4 chapters, because in chapter 2, we now that have Nebuchadnezzar had this dream of the statue, and we see that Nebuchadnezzar, he was the longest ruling monarch ever to reign in the Babylonian Empire. He died 2 years old. They were known as astronomers and astrologers. They were immersed in the occult, the mystical, the magical, and had those beliefs. We see that his name shows up 57 times in the book, in the Bible. And we see that Daniel in chapter 1 introduces him as the king who took him and all of the other Hebrew boys. We see that Nebuchadnezzar in Jeremiah 4:7 is known as the destroyer of nations, but yet in Jeremiah 27:6, God calls him his servant. We see that God used Nebuchadnezzar to punish the Hebrews, but in return, there was a reason for that. And that was that the Hebrews were to show this heathen nation who God was. As a group of young men, we see that they miserably failed the test. But there were 4 who stood firm, and God blessed them by 10 times. I know I want to be blessed 10 times more than anybody else, so I'm sure that you do too. And one of the ways that this happens is right here, by following the health reform diet in every single way. We see that when we look at the events that prepared Nebuchadnezzar for this journey, we see that he had several opportunities in which to come to know God, where he could actually be converted. And when we follow his story from chapter 1 to 4, we can see that God was after this man's salvation. God was going to the ends of the earth to save this man. And he was willing to do anything. He was willing to perform these absolute miracles. The first time that he should have really come to know God and question was with the 4 Hebrew boys. He noticed that they were 10 times better than all of the other Hebrew boys. As the king, you can bet that he knew that these boys were eating different. He was not aloof to what these boys were eating. And I'm sure the entire nation eventually came to know what these boys were eating. That was the first time. The second time that God gave him an opportunity to come to know him was through chapter 2, and that was through the dream. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar had this amazing dream, and he forgot what the dream was, and he's trying to ask all of his magicians, what was my dream, because I forgot it. And now there's somebody who actually can tell him what his dream is, if that's not amazing. So he sees what his diet is. He sees how intelligent and how smart he is, along with the other 3. He sees that they are 10 times better. And now he sees that Daniel was even able what his dream was. And the next miracle was that he was able to discern what it meant. He was able to interpret what that meaning was. We then see that there was the fiery furnace in chapter 3. You see, God is just after this man. So there were people who were after the Hebrews, and especially Daniel, and so they made this false sense of worship test, And that test was to worship only Nebuchadnezzar for 30 days. Well, that didn't work too well. The 3 Hebrew boys, Daniel was out of town, and the 3 Hebrew boys would not kneel down to the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, and that was created. We see that he brought those 3 boys up, and he wanted them dead because his anger got the best of him. He was known as a man who was very hard. He was very cruel. He was a very cruel oppressor. And we see that when he brought them up, and he said, I'm going to give you another chance, because Nebuchadnezzar, he did not want to destroy them. He was some of their best men. And so he gave them another chance, but when they said, "O king, we are not careful in what we are saying, we will never worship you, we will always honor the God of heaven," it furied him. He turned up the heat 10 times hotter, and the men who threw them in, they got destroyed. The 3 Hebrew boys also got thrown in. They are now walking around in that fire. Nebuchadnezzar, he is jumping out of his throne, and he is saying, "What in the world? Didn't you throw 3 men in there? And yet I see 4, and the 4th one looks like the Son of God." And he calls them 3 out. And he said, and he noticed that they didn't even have smoke on their clothes. This should have been another time that Nebuchadnezzar should have taken note of the God of heaven. We see also the next time, now these are 3 to 4 major events that Nebuchadnezzar should have come to know God, but he didn't. He was so stubborn, he was so prideful, he had so much arrogance that he couldn't see beyond himself. God had given him his intelligence and his strength and the Hebrew boys under his authority for a reason. And that was for Nebuchadnezzar to fulfill God's purpose, not his own, but he used his clout for bad. When we see in chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar has another dream, and he's trying to find someone now who can interpret it. There's the 4th major opportunity that he could have come to know God, because Daniel again interpreted the dream for him. And now we're going to read in Daniel 4, and we're going to start with 24 through the end of the chapter, and we are going to read what the interpretation is, and then what happened. And this is the interpretation, O king. We're in 4:24. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which has come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen. Now notice this grass is not like grass that's outside, because we don't have 4 stomachs like a cow. So we cannot digest grass. When you look at the original, this is translated as sprouts. And they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee. 7 times, because 7 is the number of perfection. It also takes 7 years for our body to completely regenerate every single cell in our body. Every 7 years, we are a totally new creature. Till thou know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of man and gives it to whomever he will. So we are seeing that we're starting to see what his sins are. His sins is that he is taking glory for himself. He's calling himself he's thinking that he's the ruler because he's so great and mighty. And it says that he doesn't know God. So God is after the salvation of this man. And he's going to be after him until he accepts him. because God knows eventually he will accept him, because God knows the beginning from the end. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the tree roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee. After that thou shalt know that the heavens do rule. Here we have his sins being exposed. Wherefore, O king, let thy counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness. We're talking about righteousness by faith here. And thine iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, because he did not show mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. So we see that Nebuchadnezzar has a pride issue. He's got an incompassionate issue. And all this came upon the king Nebuchadnezzar in 29. And at the end of the 12 months, he walked into the palace of the kingdom. And the king spake and said, is not this the great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? You see the eye problem that he has here, and the pride and the arrogance that he has? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O king Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from me. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make thee to eat grass or sprouts as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, 7 years, until thou know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he will. So God is the one who takes up kings and kingdoms. He's the one who takes them down, and yet he's taken all the glory to himself. Keep in mind, this is an end-time prophetic book with an end-time prophetic message for an end-time prophetic people. And it starts out with a test of diet, and we're moving on into chapter 4 as another test of diet. And that, now think about the time in which we are living in. We're living in the Antitypical Day of Atonement. We're living in the last days when God is trying to make the 144,000. We're living in Laodicea. We see that we're living in a very specific time in history where it is all starting now to come together. This prophetic book has been closed until the end of time, but this book, because we're in the end of time, is now open, and we now understand it more than we ever have. I think there's still some questions left in this book, but I think it's in time, it's being revealed more and more. And while the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from me. So we're saying that the God of heaven is after this man. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling will be with the beasts of the field, and thou shalt make thee to eat grass or sprouts as oxen, and 7 times or 7 years till thou know that I am God. You see his sins? These are generally sins that most people accept as okay. But God in this end-time prophetic book is saying it's not okay. Take glory to ourselves. We cannot take credit to ourselves. We must show mercy to the poor. The same hour, and this is really important to remember, the same hour. So in 1 hour he was taken from his kingdom with all of his worldly riches and with all the king's dainties, and was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar. So now he was driven from men and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird claws. He's looking like an animal here. We see that God is trying to reach this man in the inner thoughts of his mind. He's trying to get into his thoughts, in the way he thinks. And he did this in 1 hour. He's eating of the king's dainties, and in the next hour, same hour, he now just automatically gets put into a field. I'm going to explain that. And at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes up to heaven, and my understanding returned unto me. And I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him that lives forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. So you see here, he's finally recognized the God of heaven, that he is now a saved man. He's recognizing God, and all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he does according to the will in the army of the heaven. And among the inhabitants of the earth, and none can stand his hand, or say unto him, What dost thou? At the same time my reason returned unto me, and for the glory of my kingdom my hour and brightness returned unto me, and my counselors and my lords sought unto me, and I was established in my kingdom, and excellent majesty was added unto me. That is the most powerful king in the most powerful kingdom, and for 7 years there's no ruler and there's no one taking over his kingdom. I find that pretty amazing. That is a God of mercy. 37, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all whose works are truth and his ways judgment, and those that walk in pride he is able to abase. In this end-time prophetic book, this man has the arrogance, he has no compassion, he's got pride, he's got the I problem, and he is taking on his successes as if they are his success. So I'm going to go through some character traits here that are, I'm going to compare Daniel. So we already know Daniel's diet, and we're going to look at Nebuchadnezzar's diet. Oh, I seem to have lost my pointer. Okay. Do you have a pointer by chance? Oh, here it is. Okay, it was on the very bottom. Okay, so let's look at some of these character traits. We see that Daniel he honored his body as the temple of God, and then of course we know that God blessed him through that. Nebuchadnezzar, he indulged his appetite with the swine's flesh and other meats and rich dainty and all sorts of things. We see that Daniel had total commitment to God. Now keep in mind their diets here. As I go down this list here. He had a total commitment to God. He relied upon him for every little and big thing. Nebuchadnezzar had a fleeting commitment to God, and he worshiped his own gods. Daniel had a regular prayer life, and Nebuchadnezzar had no prayer life with the God of heaven. Daniel sought approval of God above all else, including his life and offending the king, because he was willing, he was not going to take of the king's dainties. We see that Nebuchadnezzar worked from his own approval. Daniel sought wisdom from God. Nebuchadnezzar sought his own wisdom. Daniel didn't seek revenge, even from the other Hebrew boys, and when they gave him a hard time. And Nebuchadnezzar, he was a revenger, and he did get revenge. We see that Daniel didn't get involved in politics, and Nebuchadnezzar was very involved in politics. Daniel looked at the long view of the prize. Nebuchadnezzar looked at the short view. Daniel found favor with his captors, where Nebuchadnezzar was a tyrant. He was known as a cruel oppressor. Daniel was humble, teachable. He had concern for other people. He had a true, firm, noble life lived up to. He sought to live in peace with all, but yet he was unbending in his principle. This is the character that God is trying to lead his people to, that we stand firm on principle, no compromise for any reason, for anybody, but we always stand firm in love, compassion, and always in care and concern for somebody else's salvation. Where Nebuchadnezzar, he was very arrogant, he was prideful, he was very extravagant, selfish, egotistical, moody, temperamental, demanding, commanding, with high stress. Daniel, the lessons that he learned about God had a far-reaching effect. Nebuchadnezzar, the lessons that he learned about God had failed to bless those who succeeded him, because we see when Belshazzar, his grandson, took over the kingdom, that he ended up doing just what Nebuchadnezzar did, the I thing, the pride, the extravagance, the arrogance. And we see that he lost his life in that same way. Somehow God knew that even if he would have went to the ends of the earth for Belshazzar, God knows that he never would have come. Otherwise, he would have been after him as well. But he knew that he could have tried and tried and tried all of his life, but he knew that he was never going to come. We see that Daniel had superior intelligence. Both men had superior intelligence that was given from God. And in the body temple, Nebuchadnezzar, though did not honor God through it, he turned it into an I pride problem. And of course, he indulged in the food and the diet. He ate swine's flesh. He had whatever he wanted. We see that Nebuchadnezzar was raised to power for a very specific role in the divine plan of God. Of him, God said, "Now have I given all these lands into the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant." God is trying to use this man to use him for his purpose. Now, let's see what happens in this 1 hour. In this 1 hour, we see that he goes from eating swine's flesh, alcohol, all the processed foods, probably no fruits and vegetables, and all the junk food of the world, and literally in that same hour, he is now eating a purely vegetarian, whole food, plant-based diet. Purely vegetarian. And he's now eating grass and sprouts and microgreens for 7 years. We see that everything that he is eating is local. Everything is in season. He had no refrigerator, of course. He had no way to store his food, so he just ate off of the land whatever was in season. When mangoes were around, he ate mangoes, and when they were gone, they were gone. Whatever greens were growing, whatever wild greens were growing at the time, that's what he ate. So he had a nice wide variety, but not in it. That wide variety was throughout the year, not throughout the day or even the week. There was more of a variety throughout the month, and that's a principle for us as well, that we don't need these huge varieties in our diet. And when we're eating these very complex mixtures with all the complicated ingredients, it creates a war in our stomach. And especially on Sabbath, when we take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and our plate has 15 different things on it of what everybody's made, and before we know it, we've overindulged in our Sabbath meal, not only in the quantity, but the quality as well. So we see that everything is in season. We see it, everything is raw. Nothing is cooked. Everything is living. He is eating the greens right off the grass. He's eating the fruit right off the trees or right off of the bushes. Everything was organic. Everything was not genetically modified. There was nothing processed. The wild edibles of Baghdad's time, back then, he would have eaten all of those wild edibles. And what's wild edible here is going to be different than what's in North America, but these would be some of the wild edibles where I live. He had a very high green diet, lots of chlorophyll, and lots of fruit and berries and seeds and nuts. And how do I know that? Because that's what wild oxen eat. They eat a purely vegetarian, whole food, plant-based, raw diet of only greens and fruits and berries and nuts and seeds. We see that this was a very simple diet, that it had the variety over a month. It was very easy to digest, and by default, what was removed were the rich, unhealthy dainties, dead animals, swine's flesh, alcohol, cooked food, cheese, condiments, spices, and processed sugars. By default, also, the harmful ingredients were removed, like MSG and acrylamides. Acrylamides are, when you bake like a loaf of bread or cookies or potatoes, like make them into French fries or something, and they turn nice into a golden color. That golden color is acrylamides. That's why when you bake bread or make cookies or something, you only want to bake it to a point where it's just a light golden color, because anything more, the darker the golden color, the more the acrylamides. Also, things removed were processed sugars, the fats, the trans fats, the trans fats, we talked about those a little bit yesterday and today. Trans fat is a blood vessel destroyer, and it's found in a lot of your foods here, because I went through the grocery store today and I was surprised at how many foods that's in. And the first place I looked was peanut butter, and it's like in all the peanut butter. But I did find one that only had peanuts and salt. But it's in so much of the food here. And so this trans fat is a man-made chemical, a molecule, where it takes saturated fat and it makes it more solid with more hydrogen bonds, which creates more damage in the blood vessels in the heart as the heart tries to pump it around. The body doesn't know how to break it down. And so it just continues going through the bloodstream, and the blood's just like, I don't know what to do with it, so I'm just going to keep passing it around. And eventually something may break. We might end up with a stroke or a thrombus in our leg or in our heart or somewhere. But so these trans fats are actually and in America they have actually been food as of many, many years ago, probably I'd say 17 years ago, maybe they were banned. And I do see them in a little bit of food, that they're kind of creeping back in again, just a little bit, but I hope that's not something to come. Artificial food colorings are gone. The artificial sweeteners and the flavorings, the preservatives, the plasticides, the fungicides, the herbicides, the pesticides, the high fructose corn syrup, and all man-made chemicals completely gone from his diet. And instead of him keeping up on the news, he actually became the news. So this is my diet that I share with my clients. I move them somewhere between Daniel's whole food plant-based cooked diet and Nebuchadnezzar's whole food plant-based raw diet. All of my clients go somewhere in between there, depending on what their issues are and how severe it is. So every person is an individual. I do have principles that I go by. I do go by a hierarchy, but then it depends on what people's issues are and they're trying to work out. This is health reform. Does this diet remind you of something? What does it remind you of? It should remind you of something. Doesn't that diet remind you of anything? Come on, you're all a bunch of Adventists, right? You've all read your Bible, right? So what's that diet remind you of? What's that? Yes. Yes. Doesn't that look like the Garden of Eden diet? That's the Garden of Eden diet, and that's the diet of the new heaven and earth. That's the diet that we are heading towards. Our health reform diet is a prophetic diet. As on day one, the topic that I did, for a reason, so we can see that there's a foundation of that God is waiting to bless all these people of the inhabitants of the earth if they just pass the diet test. And we see person after person does not pass the diet test. We see other people who do pass the diet test, and they're blessed. This is where God is trying to take us. Where is our step between now and heaven in prophecy, in the great controversy? What's our next step? What's the progression between now and heaven? Have you guys ever read the great controversy? So where's the next step from here? Recognizing where we are in history at the very end of time, where's the next step? Where's that? Oh, no, he said Sunday law. Yeah, that's true, but the place. Where is he taking us as the place is what I should have been more specific. The next place, you see, the council says move out of the big cities into smaller towns and find a rural place outside of town. Then the next place is a place of retirement, a place way in the country. And then after that, we are kicked out of our homes and we go to the wilderness, right? And then the next place between the wilderness after that is heaven, right? Yeah. What do you think God's going to feed us when we are out in the wilderness? This is our diet. We have a diet test. Just like everybody else in the diet in the Bible. They have had their diet test. We now have our diet test. Our diet test comes out of books like this: Counsels on Diet and Foods, Ministry of Healing, Counsels on Health, the story of our health message. There's lots of books out there now. Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene. Most of those are available online for free. I've given you Counsels on Diet and Foods. This is a prophetic diet. This is our test. Are we going to be like the Israelites, where God was trying to take them away from the flesh pots of Egypt, and they complain, and they're like, oh Lord, is that all we're going to get? Is this manna? Oh, come on. Where's the flesh pots of Egypt? And what did they do? The Israelites or the Hebrews and the Egyptians, because a mixed multitude went with them, many of them walked away from God's people to be no more. You see, they chose to walk away. They chose the world over God. They lost salvation. There's a parallel between them on their way to the promised land and our way to the promised land. They were going into the physical promised land. We're going into the spiritual promised land. We too have a diet test to pass. When we're out there, and this is what God is feeding us, and he gives us 5 bananas for lunch, are we going to say, oh God, is that all you're going to give us, are these 5 bananas? Where's my chicken in? Where's my French fries? Where's my cheese, my coffee, my tea? Where's my vinegar? Or are we going to say, thank you, God, for these 5 bananas. Thank you so much. We see that the Israelites never reformed their diet. And we also see that any of the adults of that time never made it into the promised land except 2. All of the other ones died before they ever reached the promised land. You see, they chose to walk away. They chose the world, they walked away. We will do the same. You see, we will You see, we will not be lost because we're eating meat, not be lost because we're eating meat. We will choose to walk away back to the world again because we're eating meat. Do you see the difference? We are not lost because we're not lost because we're eating meat. The Israelites were not lost because of the meat, is that they were rebellious against God's dietary laws. So it's like a side effect, or it's a secondary cause. So when we're out there, and God is giving us 5 bananas and several mangoes, and he gives us peaches and oranges, and we're so sick of fruit that we will choose to walk back to the world again. So it's a secondary effect of rebellion, because we've been told in the Bible, eating meat represents rebellion. That's what the manna and the Aaron's rod represent. So the manna represents the diet that God was trying to bring his people to. The staff represents the rebellion, because God says, don't forget that you rebelled. That's why it's in the Ark of the... It's a reminder to you and to me. When we see now that where did God now put him? We see that he put him immediately into country living. He slept in and breathed the fresh outdoor air. Outdoor air has negative ions, much more healthy than indoor air. And I love how you guys keep your windows open all the time. It just allows that free flowing, and it helps our intelligence. It helps us to stay awake. There's not much of a breeze coming through right now, but it completely refreshes the air of all of our exhale. Can we turn these back on again? The fans back on? We see that Nebuchadnezzar was inundated with nature and trees and brooks, where nature became his teacher. He communed with the oxen and other wild beasts. He fasted from all entertainment, news, and devices. He had a lot of peace and quiet in his life. He was surrounded by the natural noises of wildlife, like frogs and crickets, birds, prey howling, rustling of leaves, babbling brooks. He fasted from the opinions and influences of others. He had plenty of time to reflect upon Daniel's example of how to worship God and the 3 Hebrew boys, his friends, through the fiery furnace. We see that he was able to learn directly from God. We see that he had exercise every single day. He had no vehicle. He walked everywhere. He drank pure water. He bathed in the sunshine daily. He had temperance in everything. He went to sleep and woke up with the sun. He had very peaceful surroundings. He practiced what humans, what's called earthing. And earthing is something that's from the beginning of time, but humans have given it a term more recently, and that's just simply walking outside barefoot, or sleeping on the grass and looking up at the stars or the clouds moving. It's just simply connecting with the earth with your body. So he was walking around. All chemicals were removed from his home and from his body. He had no microwave, no refrigerator, no stove, no Wi-Fi, and no electricity. And in time, his brain and his body healed from the dietary abuses, that he was able to recognize who God was. What does this remind you of? Where does this remind you of? Come on, Adventists. I know you've read your Bible. Where is this?
in Daniel chapter 1, where Daniel and his friends decide on a diet that makes them have some mental superiority over others.
Testing. Oh, okay. All right. This is heaven. This is our new home, where we have no amenities. We have no microwave, no refrigerator, living outside at all times, living in no house other than nature. So we see Daniel, again, is an end-time prophetic book with an end-time message for an end-time prophetic people. This is a book that we are to understand. Now, let's see what Nebuchadnezzar went through. He went through when he, in 1 hour, less than 1 hour, in the same hour, he went from eating all the king's dainties and all the junk food of the world to eating a completely raw diet of mainly fresh fruits, greens, nuts and seeds. There was nothing cooked, so there would have been no beans, there would have been no grains. And doesn't that sound familiar, like I've been telling you all along? The research supports that we can live very healthfully on an all-fruit diet, supplemented with greens and a few nuts and seeds. We don't need the rest of the vegetables, we don't need grains, and we don't need beans. They add variety to our diet, but there's no nutrients that are in these particular food groups that are not found in fruits, berries, greens, and nuts and seeds. Every nutrient that we need is found in these things. In 1 hour, now I have people coming to my home sanitarium, and I can tell you that some of them go through these things. I know what people go through as they go through detoxing. And I know Nebuchadnezzar went through some major detoxing. He went through some major withdrawals. Remember I shared my story about just trying to get off cheese? Imagine if you're trying to get off cheese and meat and the rest of dairy and chocolate and sugar and eggs and everything else, the tea, the coffee, and everything else that he was eating. He is detoxing from everything all at once. And I know that he had major cravings, he had major withdrawal symptoms. I know when people go through detoxing, they get angry, they are irritable, they're grumpy, they're filled with anxiety, they're going up and down in their emotions, they're crying, laughing, and they don't know why they're so happy, and 5 minutes later they can be down in the dumps, and 5 minutes later they can be down in the dumps, and they're crying, and they're crying because now they're sad, yet they can't tell you why they're sad. Crying because now they're sad, yet they can't tell you why they're sad. That's detoxing. If someone can usually say, well, you know, this is happening and that's happening, and, you know, someone just passed away in my family, of course, but I'm talking about when people usually can't explain why they're going up and down and why they're a little more sensitive than they normally are, that's usually detoxing. I know that he had a very high temper, because we know also from the characteristics from the Bible, we also know that people will be high-tempered. When you take away all their meat and all their dairy and all their eggs and their coffee and their tobacco and their alcohol all away in like 1 hour, because I know how people are with me when they're not allowed their tobacco, alcohol, their meat, their dairy, their sugar, their processed foods, their pasta, their white rice, and all of these things, they are completely taken away at my place. And some people sometimes can get quite irate. And some of them, and I don't allow, part of the rules of coming is they are not allowed to go back into town. Once they are in my place, they don't leave. I mean, they can leave, but if they choose to leave, they leave permanently. They're not allowed to leave and come back, because what's the first thing that people are generally going to do? They're going to fix their fixes. They want their meat or their dairy, their sugar, their coffee, their tobacco, whatever it is. But if they're willing and brave enough to go through it, I help them through the struggles of addictions. I help them to get off their alcohol, their tobacco, their coffee, and it usually happens quite quick because of the way that I feed them. And they're usually quite surprised at how fast that can happen, generally in like 3 to 4 days. And their cravings are gone, because I am loading their body up with a ton of fruit, which is the best thing that we can load people up on when they are hurting physically. So I know that he was angry at God, having many outbursts to God. He's probably throwing his fist up to heaven and saying, "Why are you doing this to me?" But keep in mind, Nebuchadnezzar, he knew what the prophecy was, and he is choosing to stay. God does not save us against our will. He's a complete gentleman. He could have walked away if he wanted, but he did stay for those whole 7 years, even with his outbursts. We see that his mood swings went from crying to laughing. I know he had irregular bowel movements. He had constipation to diarrhea and back and forth. He had a very toxic, overloaded liver. And when we have an overloaded liver, we get pimples. When we get an overloaded liver, we have headaches and migraines. We get extreme fatigue. We want to sleep a lot. And I know he hated his food. When I first went plant-based, I hated my food too. I didn't do it by choice for the first year and a half. I did it by default because the people I was with, that's how they ate. Because I spent my first 5 months on the Amazon with Adventists, and then I went over to Nepal and India for another 9 months with more Adventists, and they didn't eat any animal products. And plus, I wasn't anywhere where I could eat it anyway. There was no electricity where I was in the Annapurna Mountains. So I know that if I hated my food, and it took about 2 weeks for me to actually start to taste the food, and all that muck that was in my taste buds started to finally come out, I could actually start to taste my food. It's the same thing when we get rid of alcohol and tobacco. So I know that he at first hated his food, but eventually, little by little, he started to like it. I know that he probably had major flu symptoms, or maybe even really a bad cold. He probably had fever, lots of body aches. He probably had a runny nose and a sore throat, and maybe even nausea and vomiting. We see that I know he probably had a very strong body odor. He had bad breath and swollen lymph nodes. And I think it's quite interesting or ironic that when people's lymph nodes get big and swollen, which is what our lymph system is for, it's the trash can of our body. It's where the waste is supposed to go, and yet when they get big, they get ripped out. Why do we rip them out? Why do you throw away your trash can as soon as your trash can's full? No, you empty the trash can. You go to the dump, right? You don't just throw your whole trash can away. So this is a symptom of what's happening in our body when we get enlarged lymph nodes. Our lymph nodes get large because we're detoxing, and they're supposed to get large. That's what we want for them to do, because it shows that our body is trying to move something, so we have to move our lymph nodes. And our lymph doesn't have a pump like our cardiovascular system does. our lymph system has to be mechanically moved. So we walk, we run, we rebound, we exercise, we do whatever, and when we're moving, that's how our lymph gets moving. So if our lymph gets swollen, it shows that we need to drink more water, we need to do more exercise in order to help our body get rid of the toxins. We don't go ripping them out. We want to keep our lymph nodes. I know that he went through all of these because as people come to my house and go through these detox, or they go through detoxing, this is what they go through too. I already know that people aren't going to like their food for the first couple of days. I already know they're going to be grumpy. I already know they're going to be trying, to hide on me to get their tobacco or their sugar fix, and it usually doesn't happen. And they just start getting really irritated. But yet, after like day 3, they finally start to see light at the end of the tunnel, and on day 4 they start to feel better, and on 5 they're like, wow, this is amazing, and they just keep getting better after that. And I know that's what he did too. Little by little, he then started to improve. So eventually, over those 7 years, he was so toxed up that God saw that it took 7 years for him to detox. That principle is there for us as well, letting us know and reminding us that it doesn't take just a week or 2 or 3 to detox. And now that we're living in such a polluted world, it takes us now even longer to detox. So the principle is that this is a lifelong process now, because our air is polluted, our water, our food, everything is polluted, but we have a promise of God that if we eat his way and have the life that he has given us for the diet and lifestyle, he promises us healing. He promises us healing. He also says that sometimes we have abused our body so much that we may not be able to get 100% back, but we should be able to at least get some back, if not most of it, unless we've gone so far in self-gluttony that we've literally killed ourselves. But most of the time, if we've not got to that point, people see miracles happening when they come to my place. And you saw some of those miracles yesterday. I showed you the before and after picture of the lady. I showed you the lady that I had to carry in, me and 2 other men had to carry her in a wheelchair. And on day 7, she was walking and with a walker, and within 6 weeks she's walking completely unassisted, when she was so riddled with gout that she was heading to a nursing home. Her husband couldn't take care of her anymore. You saw what 10 days did with a woman who had blood sugars in the 18s and the 19s. And by the time she left, 10 days later, she had 100% in glucose range, from 150 units of insulin down to less than 10. This is amazing. I make people live outside. I don't care how cold it is or how rainy it is, everybody goes outside. Of course, I give them rain gear, I give them umbrellas, and then I give them outside time, and if they can't really walk too well, I put them in a chair outside on the front eave that is under an eave so they don't get rained on or snowed on, and I wrap them up in a blanket so they can breathe the outdoor fresh air. They've got nice music going that soothes the brain, and it's amazing what just sitting outside does for people. You know, sometimes people come and they just sit there for like hours, just looking at the sky, and they really don't say anything. They're processing. They're going through some things in their head. They're trying to heal from something. It's an amazing process. So eventually, as I see people go through this process in 10 days, I see that Nebuchadnezzar, because he was so incredibly toxed up for all of his, because he probably went out there at probably 62 years old. 62 years old is when God sent him out there at the end of his life. We see that eventually it started to boost his immune system into overdrive. It gave him energy abounding day by day, and yet more and more toxins were removed. He had a peace of mind that just got better and better. I'm sure for the first 6 months he hated life. He probably was constantly sick with the flu because of detoxing. But after that, he could probably see a little bit light at the end of the tunnel. He just started getting better little by little by little until at the end of 7 years, it just all came together for him. He had a happy joy. He became happy, joyful, and grateful. He had lots and lots of times for reflection. He reduced or eliminated all of his lifestyle disease and risks and concerns. I showed you what God said about the woman who was dying, and that she was to be given a strengthening diet, and that diet was a diet of high fruit. And I showed you another quote that said that those who are waiting for the coming of the Lord will have basically a high fruit diet. They will go back to the Garden of Eden diet. We also read that fruit will not give any of the diseases that meat does. So we have a lot of insurance to follow his counsel for us. So that includes osteoporosis, hypertension, cancer, diabetes, obesity, acne, kidney disease, bowel disease, arthritis, heart disease, gout, stroke, high cholesterol. When we see that 7 out of 10 people who are dying of this world today is lifestyle based, it's due to the diet and lifestyle, and that we are living completely opposite from God. We can also deduce from Daniel 1:15, where it says, and at the end of the 10 days their countenance appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. We see that he went from that appearance, that he was, we see that in chapter 4, he now looked, it says that his hairs were grown like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird's claws. So we see that he looked like probably a brute animal, and he went back looking like the image of God again. We know that he had a poor complexion, because you saw that. You saw that in the before and after picture of the lady that I showed. That was 10 days. And if Daniel can do it in 10 days, that's why my program's 10 days. And there I showed you, and that was actually on day 9. That wasn't even day 10. And we can see that his eyes were gaudy, that his face was probably quite puffy. He was overweight, I'm sure. He was obese, because most of the kings were obese and unhealthy at that time, and very untoned, because he probably didn't get any exercise, to the point where he went to a very thick head of hair, a ruddy complexion, healthy, clear complexion, normal weight with well-toned muscles. And we're told in Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene, it says that this diet and lifestyle now gave him an erect form, a firm, elastic step, a fair countenance, undimmed senses, untainted breath, as it did for Daniel and his 3 companions. Going through detoxing is no fun, but generally I try to prepare my people if they are coming to a 10-day program. I help them to, little by little, try to give up things, including oil, because oil is part of that list as well. That's very highly processed. And so I have them first give up SOS, salt, oil, sugar, SOS. I have them give up their SOS, and then I have them eventually give up their gluten. I have them give up their cheese, their coffee, their tea, and by the time they've come to me for the week to 2 weeks ahead of time, they've already been preparing, so now they can get a greater benefit of coming to the 10-day program. But there are some people who just found out about my program and they're like, hey, it's tomorrow, can I come tomorrow? Those are the people I feel sorry for. Those are the ones who didn't have time to really prepare. But I explain it to them and they still want to come, so they end up doing quite well as well. We see now at the end of those 7 years that he becomes humble and teachable. He has now honored the God of heaven and recognizes him as the God of heaven. He becomes repentant. His reasoning returns. He confesses before the God of heaven. He acknowledges God as the King of heaven. He becomes reverent. He lost his boastful pride, his arrogance, and his character blemishes, and he became a witness for God. He had a very powerful testimony. He became warm and eloquent with grateful heart. Those are in parentheses because that comes right out of the spirit of prophecy. Fully partook of the mercy, grace, righteousness, and peace of the divine nature. He transitioned from proud and boastful to humiliated to humble. He cleaned up his appearance again from disheveled to honoring. He went from the condition of a brute beast to that of bearing the image of God. He had the attributes of a converted sinner. He was born again. He is somebody now that we would all want to have come visit our church and give us his testimony and what a raw food diet can do for a person. A whole food, plant-based, raw diet. This is prophetically where God is trying to take us between now and out there. And if we aren't even on yet the whole food, plant-based, unrefined, cooked Daniel diet, how will we ever withstand a whole food, plant-based, raw diet when we get out there? And all God's going to feed us are maybe some berries and some fruit, maybe some greens, a few nuts and seeds. That's all he's going to feed us. Because we're talking about the diet of heaven. Are we going to grumble or are we going to embrace it? Are we going to tame our taste buds now and go through what we have to now, or take the chance when that day comes that we will be like the Israelites and walk back to Egypt because I want the king's dainties or the flesh pots of Egypt? What are we going to choose? God is having us choose right now. So how and why does the Nebuchadnezzar diet lifestyle, how does it look for the end times? Daniel is an end time prophetic book with a dual application back then and now. It's prophetic. The diet and lifestyle of Nebuchadnezzar is the same diet and lifestyle that God wants us to work for today. Is it overnight? No. This is no time for competition. This is not time for you to judge somebody else. This is now a time for you to examine you and your neighbor to examine them and for me to examine me. This is not a time to be telling somebody else what their diet and lifestyle should be. This is time to start encouraging one another, and we encourage one another by our example. I eat the way that I eat, and you eat the way that you eat. And what does our example, is your diet and my diet, is it bringing people closer to the Lord or keeping them away? Can someone see that you are different because of the way that you eat? Can they say, are you a Seventh-day Adventist? Because there's plenty of people out there who've read our books and they embrace them. They actually live them. They've come to us and they're so like, who are these people with these amazing books? These books are amazing. And they live it, they love them, they embrace them, and now they want to go meet the people where these books come from, and then they end up at our potluck line and they never return again. And if they are someone with a following, you can bet that they hear about us. We will hear about us from their email newsletters, on their Facebook page, because many of these big names I've rubbed shoulders with. I know them personally because I've been on the stage with some of them. And I've talked on the phone with many of them. So I know them, and I get their newsletters, and all they can do is bash us. That's all they can do. They say, I was so excited to meet these people who have these books that are so incredibly wonderful, and yet they completely disregard them. Our potlucks don't represent who we are. They don't represent God's people. There's enough of you now who know this message. Start going to church with true health reform dishes. If you guys do potlucks, our church does potlucks. I know other churches may provide the food for you, but make sure that, make a petition before the church board to bring health reform food, if it's not. Make a difference. And if you're not ready to do that, at least what goes on your plate should be health reform, and let others see that you follow the God of heaven. Just like the poor diet and lifestyle made Nebuchadnezzar go mad, so does it do with us today. As he engaged in therapeutic diet and lifestyle and regained his faculties, research strongly confirms that this is exactly what happens when we do too. The large amount of cooking is not at all that's done is not necessary. Neither should there be a poverty-stricken diet, either in quality or quantity. The affliction of the stomach affects the brain. We read that we need to cut down the large amount of cooking that is filling our world with chronic invalids. So that leads right into this, the Nebuchadnezzar raw diet. Somewhere between now and the close of probation, our diets have to take a total turn from where they are. Like I said before, I have no idea how you guys eat. I've never asked and I don't care, but all I do know is our people around the world in general, so I use general terms. In general, we're very loose with the diet and lifestyle. We're very sloppy. We compromise all over the place, and yet we still have the audacity to think that God is going to save us in our sins of intemperance. But don't be overwhelmed, please. I know some of you may be, but take it with God one step at a time. Move as fast as you're able, not so fast that it is unsustainable, but not so slow that you're not moving. Start making decided changes today. Because how often does God give us an opportunity to start over? Does anybody know? Can you take a guess? Always. Always. How about every single meal? Every minute, every single meal we eat, we can show who we belong to. Do we belong to the world, or do we belong to Christ? Are we going to follow Christ and give up our dainties? Heaven is cheap enough. Who cares how much food or whatever I have to give up? Who cares what I have to give up in order to gain heaven? Who cares if I have to give up my meat and my dairy and my cheese and my tea and my sugar and my eggs and my caffeine and my chocolate and my oil, and who cares? I really don't care. If that's what God says that we have to eat, okay, so be it. That's where I'm going. Because I want heaven. And if he says that's our requirement, what can I do about it? There's nothing I can do other than, he says, if you love me, obey my commandments. So we do all that we do because we love him. It's not in order to be loved. It's because we are loved. It's because we are saved. Let the diet form be progressive. Let the people be taught how to prepare food without the use of milk or butter. Tell them that because meat's already been given up here, and cheese, cheese was never to be past the human lips. Tell them that the time will soon come when there will be no safety in using eggs, milk, cream, or butter, because disease in animals is increasing in proportion to the increase in wickedness among men. The time is near when, because of the iniquity of the fallen race, the whole animal creation will groan under the disease that curse our earth. And animals are groaning. God will give his people ability and tact to prepare a wholesome food without these things. Let our people discard all unwholesome recipes. Let them learn now how to live healthfully, teaching to others what they have learned. Let them impart this knowledge as they would Bible instruction. Let them teach the people to preserve the health and increase the strength by avoiding the large amount of cooking that is filling the world with chronic invalids. By precept and example, make it plain that the food which God gave Adam in his sinless state is the best food for man's use as he regains that sinless state. What was that sinless state? Nebuchadnezzar. After sin, Daniel. After sin, Daniel diet is a whole food, plant-based, unrefined diet, cooked. The pre-sin is a whole food, plant-based, unrefined, raw diet. You see, we need to be somewhere in between there at this point in history. And as we start continuing to move forward, it's going to be more and more. We've already read the counsel, more fruit, more greens, more nuts and seeds, because it's prophetic. It's where God's trying to take us to. There are many among professed Christians today who would decide that Daniel was too particular and would pronounce him narrow and bigoted. They considered the matter of eating and drinking of too little consequence to require such a decided stand, one involving the probable sacrifice of every earthly advantage. But those who reason thus will find in the day of judgment, that's the end time, that they turned from God's express requirements and set up their own opinion as a standard of right and wrong. Think of Cain and Abel. His requirement should be sacredly obeyed. Those who accept and obey one of his precepts because it's convenient to do so, while they reject another because its observance would require a sacrifice, lower the standard of right, and by their example lead others to lightly regard the holy law of God. Thus saith the Lord is to be our rule in all things. We are to never compromise, never. I know you guys are in college and someone said that you don't have any control over your diet. You have all control over your diet. We can give all the excuses, I'm studying, I'm busy, my mom and dad make my meals, cafeteria make my meals, I don't do that. God will not hold us guiltless by any excuse at all. Our diet comes first, before education, before our grades, before studying, before a car, before anything. Our diet is number one. We've been learning about that again and again and again from different ways all week. Those who make a determined effort in the name of the conqueror to overcome every unnatural craving will not die in the conflict. Wow. That says that if I overcome appetite, I will overcome every other sin. Indulged appetite prevents one from understanding present truth. Indulged appetite paralyzes the senses. Indulged appetite causes dullness in the brain. Indulged appetite is the greatest hindrance to mental improvement and soul sanctification. We're talking about salvation. In that little sentence right there, salvation. With all our profession of health reform, many of us eat improperly. Indulgence of appetite is the greatest cause of physical and mental debility and lies largely at the foundation of feebleness and premature death. Let the individual who is seeking to possess purity of spirit bear in mind that in Christ there is power to control the appetite. So let us learn our lessons now. Let us not underestimate the power of our diet and lifestyle. Diet is a leading step in our salvation and full surrender. We see that principle comes right out of the Garden of Eden. Let us not understand the estimate of the power of our choices to follow God in every small and particular thing. Let us follow his counsel, not our own ideas using our own definitions. Nebuchadnezzar may have been the great conqueror of this earth, but God is the mighty conqueror and conquered even Nebuchadnezzar. As Daniel, we are the best witness when we allow no room for compromise. No room for compromise. God said, don't eat of that tree. He meant, don't eat or touch of that tree. Stay on the straight and narrow. God will save those around us when we are faithful in our own walk. I give a whole talk, a whole sermon on how do we help save other people. And the whole foundation of that talk is my witness and your witness. What kind of a Christian are you portraying to those around you? Are you busy praying for the salvation of other people? Are you praying for their diet and the things that you see them doing wrong? But what does God say? What about you? You might be praying for their salvation, but what about you? Are you showing the best example that they can see who I am through your life? God will not be mocked. He will always show us who is really in charge. Let us learn our lesson early so that we may have a goodly life and prevent that misery that Nebuchadnezzar had to go through. There might be a lesson learned as we think of how Adam and Eve went from the perfect to the imperfect diet, and how Nebuchadnezzar went from the imperfect to the perfect diet. That's the prophetic message. We are an end-time people. He was at the end of his life. We are on an imperfect diet, but God is trying to take us at the end of time into a perfect diet. We may have not been following counsel up to now, but we can start making changes today. It's between you and God. Invite him into your taste buds. Our prophetic lesson to learn is that there's going to be many people out there in the world. They already love our message. They already abide by it. They already know it. They love the prophet. They just don't know us. And some of them may not even know the God of heaven. So when they come in here, they're known as tree huggers, the vegans, the extremists, the raw foodists, the people who have green hair. Does anyone here have green hair? I don't mean no offense. But they often, have green hair. They have lots of tattoos. They have, their tops are going to be a little too short. Their bottoms are going to be a little too high. They're going to have muscle shirts. They're going to look very different than we do. They're going to look very different. They're going to look like they're people of the world. They're going to come in with all sorts of jewelry. They might come in with markings and scars upon them because of beauty marks. However they come in, they're going to come in already knowing the health message. They're going to come in, and it will be our job to teach them who the God of heaven is, who they've been obeying the health message. There's going to be many other people out there who do know God, and there are many out there who do know God. There are our Sunday brothers and sisters. Sunday-keeping brothers and sisters, because we know that as the time gets shaken, that many of us will get shaken out, but many more will come in and take their place. We have a lot of brothers and sisters out there not among us. They're already going to know God. They're going to have a born-again experience. They just don't know the lifestyle. It's now going to be our job to teach them the diet and lifestyle. You see, so however people come in, we need to teach them what they yet don't know. Will this separation from the world in obedience to the divine command? This is somebody's question yesterday, and I was trying to give this answer. Maybe it was you, brother. Maybe this was you. But will the separation from the world in obedience to the divine command unfit us for doing the work the Lord has left us? So if we are completely following the Lord 100%, will it hinder us from doing good to those around us? In other words, are we going to be a bad example? No. The firmer hold we have on heaven, the greater will be our power of usefulness in the world. Someone asked me that question yesterday, and this was the answer that I was giving. And there's the quote. This is an amazing message. This is a message that we have long forgotten. We've long to not know about it for some of us. Some of us just have never even given it a second thought. We just don't know anything about it. But wherever we are, we can change now. We can get on the red carpet. And God accepts us just like that. Are there any comments or questions? Yes, can we get a roving mic? Oh.
Happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath, yes.
Yes, I have a question. Maybe it's connected to what we've been sharing and just a concern that I had. You shared with us that you run a sanitarium, and I know some people who do the same, even in Kenya. So how do you manage to run it, or maybe the funding and all that? There is normally a challenge of striking the balance between business, doing it as a business, and doing it for the work of God. You find that, for example, treating a patient with diabetes, this person will require to be paid a huge sum of money because they claim that they have also invested in it, they have gained the knowledge and all that. So you find that some people go to the extent of it's now a business. It's not much of even sharing the gospel. Somebody is just there to be healed and they go because they are being paid some money. So how can you comment about that, and maybe through your experience how you run your own sanitarium?
So how do we start it? So we start it, I would recommend, by just having people in your home. First of all, you have to live it yourself. You have to know what it is and live it. You have to have an experience yourself. And then you start to just bring in one person into your home and care for them. And you may not even do it for any money to start out with. Maybe food, and that's it. And then you're going to see a benefit, and then you'll have an experience now. Then you can, just little by little, you can start having people in your home. This is how a lot of people start. It's how I started. I mean, I had already for 2 decades already, I had already learned all of the principles. I've been already studying the Bible, the spirit of prophecy. I was living it. I was teaching it. And then when someone asked if I would help them, I would, little by little, I would either go to their home, because people used to, or would pay me in the very beginning, when I didn't have a place to bring them, they paid me to go to their home. And so I stayed with them for like 2 weeks. And I helped to clean out their kitchen of everything that was killing them, and then I helped replace it with everything that was of the beneficial to heal them, and they healed in their own home. I taught them how to shop. I taught them where they could get good deals on food, and I taught them the lifestyle. So I would say it's little by little. You must live it, believe it, understand it, to be able to teach it, start giving health nuggets in church, and start becoming that leader. And that people know and they recognize that you now have knowledge. Start giving cooking classes, start speaking at other churches. When you speak at other churches, please have compassion on people. As I've shared, almost every single talk that I give, there's a huge chasm here in Kenya. We must heal that chasm between those who eat meat and those who don't. We are not to allow this to come between two people. We've got to heal that. We are known by our love, not our judgment. Let people be where they be. How I run it at my house is first thing in the morning is, now if it's a 10-day program, of course it's a business, but it's a spiritual business. People know that I'm a Christian, they know I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and then they know that they're going to get Bible studies when they come. It doesn't matter to me who they are, what they believe. They're all going to get the same Bible studies. And so I sit down with them with the Bible, especially if they're all Adventists that come, then I'll actually pull out counsels on diet and foods and ministry of healing, the Bible. If they are non-Adventists, I usually stick to the Bible only. There's tons and tons of stuff in the Bible to teach people, but we get they get a morning devotion every morning and every night. We pray for our food. We thank God. We talk about God all day long in a very respectful manner, though. We don't overlord it over people. But many, many people who come through my place, if they have not been baptized, they become baptized. Many go on to do Bible studies. And I've been invited to many baptisms after they've come to my place. Praise God. Many other people who are baptized Adventists and they're just learning about health reform in this way, many of them, including in Kenya, have gone on to be health reformers. There have been many others back home that have become health coaches. So it's amazing, what one person can do. You guys can all be that light for someone else, that hope for another person. And I'm so amazed, 6 months later when someone calls me, hey, I just went through a program and I'm a health coach now. Praise God. Or 6 months later, hey, Dr. Janie, I usually know when people are going through Bible studies because they start at my house. And then I get them hooked up with a local pastor or wherever they live and they start Bible studies. And I've even done that here in Kenya. I've met taxi drivers. I've met secular people who've been through my classes where you guys have invited a friend to come. They fall in love with the message, and I get them hooked up with someone to do Bible studies. I've got several people studying right now, including a Maasai man, and he's an evangelist. And when he heard me starting to talk about the Bible, he's like, who is this woman of God? I'm an evangelist, and she's talking about stuff that I've never even heard of in the Bible before. It's just a simple Bible health message. And he was just so amazed. He got done, when he was done with my talks, he left my talks a complete vegetarian. No meat, no dairy, no cheese, nothing. And Maasai, as you know, eat a lot of meat. And he's on a whole food, plant-based, unrefined diet. Just like that, he was convicted. Amazing. So I think our presentation style really matters to people. People like to be respected. I want to be respected, so if I want to be respected, for my choices, I have to respect other people for their choices. And, we can't be judging each other. No one likes that. But yet somehow we just think, that's the best way to keep people in line, is to tell them what to do. But I don't like to be told what to do. I like people, to educate me on something. So does that kind of answer your question? Or do you have more questions?
Okay, what can you comment on those who are striking a balance between making it a business and...
Yes, okay, so striking that balance is, the beginning is you start by taking one person at a time into your home for free or only just for food. So you're not charging for your services. Get some experience behind you and some success stories behind you. Of course, you got to live it yourself without compromise. God does not like hypocrites. If we are teaching this message, we've got to live it. We've got to stand up. And then as time goes on, and now you've had several people come to your home, and you're now starting to give maybe health nuggets in front of your church, and you're giving cooking classes and health talks around your community, then you're starting to get known, and then you can now start taking people for pay. You're going to have to go through the process of whatever you have to do to make a business. You probably have to go through and register your business and, get a business license or whatever you have to do here in Kenya, whatever's required, and then you just do it. And so when you build it little by little, then you grow into it. So you can take, you have to kind of strike that balance in the very beginning about your job and taking care of people. When you have one person at your house, they're going to have to so you don't want to take someone who's super sick, of course, but you're going to be going to work every day because they're not paying you. They're more of a guest in your house. And if you're only just taking food, then you're just feeding them. But you don't take payment in the beginning. And then eventually you can start working it out with your employer. Hey, can I take these 10 days off? Or can I work half days for these 10 days? Or can I take off every other day? Or, you just kind of have to work it around with your employer until you get enough clientele that you can actually make a business out of it. That's what I assume you're asking, right? Yeah, okay. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question that has been ringing in my head since I started reading health message or getting the information about health. You look at, there are some places in this country, or maybe in the continent Africa or other parts of the world, where they are affected by droughts. And actually, maybe they can't actually. They can't.
So you said they're affected by clouds?
Droughts.
Droughts, okay.
And when there is drought, it's automatic that there will be famine. Then the health message is talking of fresh vegetables and fruits. You get it? Are you getting now the point? When today you are appointed to go and speak to those in Lodwar, Turkana, what can you tell them about fresh vegetables and fruits, which actually they see them once in a blue moon? And then...
Well, let me answer that first.
It is connected.
Okay.
Yeah. That issue is also connected to communities and their cultures. You have talked about the Maasais, but now look at the Abasuba in Mfangano Island, where they are only surrounded by water, and what they eat is fish and sardines. The economic activity, both economic and social activity there, is fish. Look at Kericho County, where there are large plantations of tea, and Mount Kenya too, where there is a plantation of marijuana and miraa. Which message can you take to them?
I have no idea what you just said, but what I do know is that God does not absolve anybody from his word. Where there's a will, there's a way. I have a girlfriend who knows a lot about wild edibles, and she grew up at a time when she would see on television, in the middle of the night. I don't know if you guys know this, but in North America, many years ago, and maybe there is, I don't stay up all night anymore, and nor do I watch TV, but years ago, there used to be 2 hours, 4 hours, or even 6-hour programs on different people in Africa, showing the most poorest of the poor, showing the little kids with those poor little, worm bellies. And they're just skin and bones. And so they would be interviewing the children. They'd be showing how poor these people are, the communities, and these are the poorest of the poor. They have drought, they have no food, and my girlfriend would go nuts because she is an expert in wild edibles, and these people are starving. Your people are starving to death, and what does she see in the background? Wild edibles everywhere. So we're so used to eating the cultivated fruits and vegetables that we don't even consider that there's free food out there everywhere. And I'm no expert on it, but she is. But you get someone out here who knows about wild edibles, guaranteed that there are a ton of wild edibles right out here on your own campus. There's flowers, there's different trees. I mean, you guys have different trees than we do because I live in the cold, but we have ferns that are edible. They're just everywhere in the forest. We have pine trees of different kinds, and every single pine tree is a natural remedy and edible. There's flowers that are edible. There's so many things that are edible that we don't recognize. So I don't think that God would make it a requirement for us to eat like this, and then he says even the poorest of us are not absolved, and then account us guilty for not even being able to do it. So where there's a will, there's a way. Because most of us will kid ourselves that it isn't possible, and because we see that it's not possible 100%, then we're not willing to do anything. And we see it as an all or a none. But yet last night I encouraged you to at least take your first step, and if you eat white rice, change to brown rice, and you're already on your step. You're already on your way. So God isn't going to make a requirement that is totally impossible. And if it is impossible, maybe we're living in the wrong place. I don't know how to answer, like for people who live in the northern part of Canada, and it's just winter 24/7. I personally don't think that's, God has meant for us to live in those kind of conditions. So, but that's not my place to say, that's my opinion. But they have to go through some pretty extreme conditions in order to live up there. But they also have a very high rate of disease up there too, because of what they eat. So all I know is that God isn't going to make something impossible for us and have us pass this test, and that we're not going to pass it because it's impossible. I don't believe in that kind of God. He will make a way. So because I may not be able to answer every single question, like what about the Eskimos in northern Canada, I may not be able to answer that, but that doesn't mean that God's principles are wrong. We have broken his principles so much, and we live so contrary to how he wants us to live that, we see things as impossible. But where there's a will, there's a way. And if it's his will, it's his bill. If it's his way, then he will make a way. Yes.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I have a question about fruits being the major part of our diet. And so I was asking if there is maybe some certain combinations of fruits which maybe do not go well and can do for us bad things, or maybe not taking more like maybe 7 types of fruits if it can do us bad. So yeah, I am asking about that.
So you're asking which are the top 7 fruits?
No, like combinations which maybe won't, if there are combinations which can't work well and maybe can do bad things because of maybe the chemical
So
composition
you're
or
wanting
something.
to know about how to fruit combine?
Yeah, if there are maybe variations that can do us bad, and yeah.
So in fruit combining, there's all sorts of man-made rules out there with the sweet fruits, with the non-sweet, and the acid fruits. And you know what? I don't see those principles. And I think that God just wants us to eat them. And so all fruit is a superfood. They're all superfoods. We can't go wrong. Just eat them. And make the combinations what work for you. If combinations don't work for you, change up a different combination. So, I mean, that's about as simple as it gets. Just eat more fruit. Yes. So I'll take that up here. I'll take it.
Yeah, so happy Sabbath. I had a question on issues on spices. So when we were reading, we say that things like mustard, pepper, spices, pickles, they irritate the stomach and they make the blood feverish and impure. So my question was on spices. Like, are there some spices which are bad or they cause irritation, and are there other spices which are usable, like they don't cause that irritation?
I'm looking for my cookbook. Okay. I have a list, so if you actually want the list, then you can text me or WhatsApp me and ask for that list, and I'm glad to send it back to you, but I will read it off to you right now. So the allspice, the cinnamon, this is all written down. And does everybody here know Ivy? So what I can do is I can send the list to her, and then if you want it, then text her, and then she can send it out to you, okay? So I'll send it to you, but I will verbally say what it is right now. That list: allspice, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, black and white pepper, cayenne pepper, chili powder, hot curry powder, ginger, horseradish, mustard, vinegar, mace, spice, and then those things that have them in it, like ketchup, mayonnaise, the tea, the coffee, the liquor, tobacco, butter, grease, Bragg's, the Bragg's soy sauce, wasabi. So generally, these are the things that create, they're warming spices, or anything that is in them. So like vinegar is in mayonnaise, and it's in mustard and ketchup. So so those things, or if vinegar is in anything, even if it's the very last ingredient in something, because vinegar is one of those nevers, never should pass the lips of a human. So that's what you wanted? That's what I understand, that you wanted the full list?
Yeah, also I wanted to ask, like, something like cumin. I think it's a spice that like you use it. So I was just wondering, like,
Oh, what is it?
cumin.
Cumin, yes.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, like, what forms the basis of telling you that this is a good maybe herb or spice and this is a bad herb or spice? Like, what forms the basis of determining which is good and which is bad?
Yes, so it's going to be anything that creates stimulation and anything that is warming. So cumin does neither one of those. When I eat hot sauce, when I eat vinegar, it creates a warming in me. My face may turn warm, and if I eat enough of it, I might sweat. You don't do that with cumin. And so these are things that raw food is generally how they make their food in the wintertime. And they're called warming spices for a reason, because they actually increase the temperature of our blood to the point where it flushes our face and causes us to sweat. Good question. Now it's after 7. Do you want me to stop right now, or do you want me to take a few questions, or what do you want me to do? Okay, so we have 2 more questions, and that's it.
Check, yeah. Is there a relation between health reform or healthful living and country living? Can you blend the two together?
You mean like Nebuchadnezzar did? Country living and health reform?
Yeah, tomorrow we are having a country living Sabbath, and can you blend the two together, country living and health reform or healthful living?
I don't know how they can be separated. So they should be one, because that's what Nebuchadnezzar has shown, that they are together, they're one. Now, just because we can't do country living, doesn't mean that we shouldn't abide by the diet, or just because we do country living doesn't mean that we shouldn't abide by the diet, and vice versa, if I said that right. And so absolutely they go together. Yeah, because that's we're talking about the diet and lifestyle of the redeemed and the diet and lifestyle of our first parents. And then there was one hand back here. You want to hand that back to him?
Happy Sabbath, happy day. Oh, so Kenya, the backbone of Kenya's economy is agriculture. So, and it employs most higher percentage of the Kenyan's population. How can you advise an health reformer who works in a tea factory or a sugar factory in order to put food on the table? And in relation to that, in your own
Okay, so let me just understand what you just said. You said that a lot of people live in factories, and how do they make enough money to put food on the table?
No, let me ask it this way. How can you advise an health reformer who operates a kiosk or a shop and sells sugar, tea, and the rest to other people? Now, this is someone who is earning a living, who
Okay,
is
so you're
trying to earn a living
okay,
for the family.
Just wait. I need to understand what you're asking me, because I'm not really understanding what you're saying. So you're saying that how do you witness to other people?
Oh,
I think I'm totally misunderstanding, because
I was asking you advice on a person who sells sugar, tea, and coffee to other people in order to meet the daily needs or put food on the table.
Okay, so you're asking me, what do you say when other people say that tea and sugar is okay? I am totally missing what you're saying.
Your question has already been answered. The health reform is something you do under the circumstances. You design considering all the circumstances. There's no prescription.
I don't think it is really answered.
Okay, just 1 second, okay? Just 1 second. Can you tell me what he just asked? Talk to me. Tell me what he just said.
A Seventh-day Adventist
So
is
if-
selling sugar.
if they're selling it. Phew, okay. So you're asking if a Seventh-day Adventist is selling sugar cane, tea, or coffee for a living, what do they do now that they're learning about health reform? Okay. Okay. What I would say, be gentle. We tread lightly, and we need to, I would encourage you to take this to the Lord in prayer and figure out what to do with Him, because He will provide a way to change that situation. And when that happens is not up to me or anybody else. It's between you and God when that happens. He may just provide a miracle and you're going to pull up all your tea plants and He's going to provide a bunch of mango trees. You know, I don't know. But you know what? God is going to provide a way if you are selling something that's killing His people. And so, but we should not condemn people, and we should not be expecting, you know, that just because you do something or now you have this knowledge that it is, you know, it's okay now to finger point towards somebody who is. So walk gently and pray. The God of heaven is able to change your circumstance. He is available to do that. And I'll give you a good example. There's a man in U.S., he was living down in Las Vegas, and he was, as a non-believer, he was a casino owner. And you know what casinos do, they have all sorts of fancy girls and, you know, all the stuff that's going on in a casino. And he went to the Lord and he said, well, what do I do? And the Lord provided a buyer for his casino at the moment he needed it. So, and he purposed in his mind that he was not going to do that because it was sinning against God. So God will provide a way. And does that kind of answer your question? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
My last question in relation to that. Now, is there a possibility of crisis in the near future? Because I'm looking at a situation whereby if, let me say, all people accept this health message, it will mean our sugar industry will collapse because no one will buy sugar.
Are you saying that all Adventists, I mean, all the sugar is owned by Adventists? I sure hope not.
No, this is a situation whereby the health message has reached everyone. Let's assume health message has reached everyone in Kenya, and they have all abide to the health reform. So our industries are going to collapse.
Hallelujah if the sugar industry goes down. Yay.
Okay, so the government will not raise enough taxes, and that will result, it will mean that the government will not be able to support its citizens. So, will this bring a crisis between this message of health reform and the government?
It could be. And you know what, that's not our job is not to worry about the taxes of the government. It's our job to have God watch over us, not the government watch over us. They are not our keepers, God is our keeper. So we follow God no matter what the consequence is. It makes no difference what the consequence is, whether we get our property removed from us or we lose our life. We always follow God. His principles are His principles. We cannot change them, otherwise we're compromising, and that turns into a disaster. So the government will just figure out another way to make taxes. All right, thank you for your questions. All right, so that was the end of the second question. Thank you so much. I've really appreciated you guys. I think that you've really stuck through a lot. And to see this many here still at the end is just amazing. I'm just praising God. Because this is not an easy message to hear. When we either didn't want to know about it, or we were rebelling against it, or whatever. You know, and I think that we all fall in some of these categories. Some of you just may have never known, and it's just out of complete ignorance. You know, you weren't rebelling, you just didn't know. Some of you may have been rebelling. Some of you may have been convicted to do this. I would also like to read something to you. And this is going to be my closing statement to you. This is called, let me see if I can find it here. It's a health pledge. I want to read a health pledge to you. Okay, this is the health pledge. There is no health pledge in the spirit of prophecy, but it says, who of you would sign a health pledge? So I came up with a health pledge that I'd like to read to you. This comes from, so I'm going to give you 4 quotes, and then I'm going to read the promise. Transgression of physical law is the transgression of the moral law. That is in Christ Object Lessons 347.1. The next one, all are being proved to see whether we will accept the principles of health reform or follow a course of self-indulgence. Let no one think he can do as he pleases in the matter of diet. Counsels on Diet and Foods 457. The next one, God demands that the appetites be cleansed and self-denial be practiced in regard to these things which are not good. There is a work that will have to be done before his people can stand before him, a perfect people. The Lord has given clear light regarding the nature of the food that is to compose our diet. He has instructed us concerning the effect of unhealthful food upon the disposition and character. Shall we respond to the counsel and caution given? Who among our brethren will sign a pledge to dispense with flesh meats, tea, coffee, and all injurious foods and become health reformers in the truest sense of the term? That's PH 128. We are coming to a time when recipes for cooking will not be needed. For God's people will learn that the food God gave Adam in his sinless state is the best for keeping the body in its sinless state. Nebuchadnezzar's diet. That's 21 MR 286. Grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables constitute the diet chosen for us by our Creator. These foods, prepared in as simple and natural a manner as possible, are the most healthful and nourishing. Counsel on Diet 81.3. Those are the quotes. Here's the promise. I solemnly promise before God to progressively move along the path of abstaining from tobacco, tea, except herbal tea, coffee, and caffeine-containing foods, beverages, liquors, illicit drugs, rich cakes, animal flesh and products such as cheese, butter, and cream, rich gravies and desserts, spices, and then I give the spices that I've already given you, fine flour, injurious condiments like ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise, vinegar, mince pies, the baking powder, baking soda, processed sugars and oil, all processed foods, too much salt, and to abstain from overeating and eating in between meals, and to lovingly and patiently invite and inspires others to do the same. As we have gone through counsels on diet and foods, we've gone through these. This is not new for you who were attending that class. This just brings it all together as one. How many of you are willing to sign a health pledge, at least verbally, before God to get progressively on the path? All right, praise God for that. If you want to read the pledge for yourself, I'd be happy to forward it to Ivy, and then she can pass it on to you. So for now, I won't be back with you again. I'm going to Pawnee on Sunday, and tomorrow I am at the Asian, is that what it's called? The Asian quarters, going to the Asian quarters tomorrow for a Sabbath school, the sermon, and the afternoon. So if anyone wants to join us there, then feel free. Otherwise, I want to leave my blessings and God's blessings upon you. Thank you for your interest in this message, and thank you for wanting to learn about it. And that tells me that you're still sitting here, that you want to strive to be part of that 144,000. We can be a church right here where none are lost, because we're told that there's going to be churches where everybody is saved. All will be raised up together, and not one will be lost. I pray that for you guys. We're also told that there are many churches in what not one single person is going to be raised. And then there's many churches where there's going to be one or several out of each churches. There's no reason that you can't be that church that is all raised up together. I would encourage you to start a WhatsApp group or a prayer group or whatever, however you guys, whatever works for you, to meet together maybe once a week or something to continue studying counsels on diet and foods, or study health reform in another way, whatever works for you guys. This message is of vast importance. So for now, let's pray, and I would like to get a picture of everybody. Is that okay?